Mr. Speaker, I rise, with your leave, to have the bill shortly entitled the Land Registry Act Validation Bill 2021 read a second time. This bill, Mr. Speaker, will seek to provide for the Land Registry Act to come into operation on the 9th day of August 2021, and it would also validate any action taken or done by the government prior to the coming into force of the said act. Mr. Speaker, we will propose an amendment at committee stage to Section 3 of the bill. Consequently, Section 3 will now read as follows: commencement and validation of Act. The Act shall come into operation on the 9th day of August 2021, and any action taken or done by the government in relation to its enactment prior to the coming into force of the Act is hereby validated and declared to have been lawfully taken or done from 13th November 2017. Mr. Speaker, real property is a cornerstone of the economy of any country, and so it is here with us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. To have real property, an individual has to have that property registered. And since 1887, we here in St. Kitts and Nevis have been governed by the by Registration Act. At that time, what came into force was a system of land registration, a system that one refers to as the Towens system. And this Towens title, or Towens system, is a land registration and land transfer system in which a state creates and maintains a register of land holdings which serves as the conclusive evidence and termed indefeasible of title of the person recorded on the register as the proprietor, owner, and all other interests recorded on the register. Mr. Speaker, the land registration, the land management, land transfer system that we have had in our country had been embedded in the High Court Registry. And in 2017, the Land Registry Act number 10 of 2017 was published in an official gazette on the 3rd day of August 2017. The long title of the Act provides for an act to establish a national land registry and to provide for electronic searches, the preservation of records, and related matters. The Act provides for the establishment of a dedicated land registry with a main office in St. Kitts and a branch office in Nevis, the staffing of the registry, the converting of land copy records to electronic copies, and the maintenance of records in an electronic format, and the availability of direct and remote access of registry services. A Registry of Lands was appointed, Mr. Speaker, on the 13th day of November 2017, who is Mrs. Dawn Myers, a national of St. Kitts and Nevis, who had been resided in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, a land registry committee was established by the Registrar of Lands, and it comprises representatives of the various stakeholders involved in land management and land transactions in St. Kitts and Nevis. The committee is tasked with, among other things, with some key functions. This includes, essentially, assisting with the smooth transition towards an independent land registry. The functions of the committee also include a mandate of seeking to ensure that the necessary policy and legislative framework is developed and maintained in order to allow for the proper registration and management of lands. In that connection, the committee is also empowered with the responsibility of overseeing the implementation of a land management system for the land registry. And in that regard, the committee is further tasked with ensuring that a cadastral mapping system be implemented for the survey and demarcation of lands for registration in the land registry. Mr. Speaker, the Land Registry Committee is comprised of the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, representatives from the Inland Revenue Departments of St. Kitts and Nevis, various departments of the Ministry of Sustainable Development in St. Kitts, including the Lands and Surveys Department and the Planning Department, the Ministry of Communication and Planning et al. In Nevis, the Accountant General, Senior Crown Counsel in the Attorney General's Chambers, Government's e-Government Coordinator, 2 representatives from the Bar Association, and 2 senior private land surveyors, with the Registrar of Lands as chairperson representing the land registries in St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, the Land Registry Department coordinated the signing of the implementing arrangement for the St. Kitts and Nevis Land Administration Information System, LAIS project, in June 2018 between the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the government of the Republic of China on Taiwan. The system being built includes the Land Registry module, the Land Registry Case Management module, the basic electronic database for land data, and the Land Case Processing Progress Inquiry website. The aim is to have a system designed by the Taiwanese for the land registry in St. Kitts, which is compatible not only with the land folio by Trimble in Nevis, but with SIGTAS, that is, the Standard Integrated Government Tax Administration System, being used by the Inland Revenue Department. The system being developed will also allow the Ministry of Sustainable Development and the Treasury Department to input information with regard to lands being bought and their payments into the Treasury. Mr. Speaker, it is anticipated that the implementation of SIGTAS would simplify land transactions and enable each ministry or department to keep abreast of the land-related functions being undertaken by each other, and so enhance the efficiency and allow the easier tracking of matters within the land registry. A 3-month training session for scanning and data entry clerks took place between March and May 2019. 2 data entry clerks were employed, and scanning of certificates of title and related documents began in earnest in June of 2019. There are now over 13,000 scanned documents which can be searched electronically. Mr. Speaker, the basic search function of the St. Kitts and Nevis Land Administration Information System is now complete. The SKN Bar Council that is the St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Council members and two senior members of the bar were invited to test the search function and to provide their comments. This function allows attorneys at law and their clerks to search the records of the Land Registry Department from the comfort of their offices. The feedback from the lawyers was favorable. One senior counsel reported that we are leaps and bounds ahead of where we were before. Their suggestions for the tweaking of the system were taken into account and the relevant modifications have been made. It is envisaged that training will shortly be undertaken with all the attorneys to allow them to efficiently maneuver through the system. Mr. Speaker, members of the public will be given the opportunity to do online searches as well from public kiosks at the Land Registry Department for the time being. It is being contemplated that the general public be also allowed to do online searches from their homes in the near future, with restrictions, of course, as security and privacy concerns are presently being considered. Mr. Speaker, in order to make our land registry more sustainable, access to the search function would only be allowed after the relevant payments are made. A payment module has therefore been developed within the St. Kitts and Nevis Land Administration information system. Users will be required to pay an annual subscription to be able to search. The amount is presently under consideration. Users would have the option of coming to the land registry to be able to pay, or eventually they can pay online with the use of a credit card, the payment being made to the Land Registry Department directly to National Bank. It is envisioned that this function will be launched next month, in September of 2021. Mr. Speaker, at this point, only the titles registry can be searched. It is anticipated, however, that users will be able to search the deed registry by December of 2021. Mr. Speaker, another function of the St. Kitts and Nevis Land Administration Information System, which should be completed in a couple months, is the ability for attorneys and their clerks to remain in their offices and present their documents online for registration. This should work hand in hand with communication online with the attorneys with regard to any inconsistencies or errors in the documents that have been presented. The advantage of this is that attorneys and their relevant support staff would then be in a position to track the progress of their documents online. It is expected that this function would again be outsourced to the St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Council members for testing prior to its launch. Mr. Speaker, I also must speak of another important activity being undertaken by the Land Registry Department, and this is in regard to the development of a cadastre system. When integrated with the St. Kitts and Nevis Land Administration Information System, it should provide real-time capture of aerial imagery of lands in St. Kitts. In order to facilitate this, flyovers with the use of drones commenced in St. Kitts in early December 2019. That should be early December 2020, in keeping with the Memorandum of Understanding between Medici Land Governance Inc. and the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis, which was signed at the 30th day of August 2019. It is expected that this integration would take place over the next few months. And I just to mention that the concept of cadastre, of the cadastral survey, is a survey that defines and quantitatively sets land boundaries for legal purposes, usually between pieces of property. It's sometimes used on a larger scale to define boundaries, legal boundaries, between different government entities and so forth. The idea of a cadastre is that it's a map that legally sets out the various boundaries of parcels of land and the ownership interests that individuals have to be able to determine that. It's an important advance in terms of land management in our country. Mr. Speaker, I should report that under consideration is the establishment of a land adjudication unit to verify land boundaries and titles. This is important once we embark with the ground activity on the cadastral survey. The original backlog of documents to be registered in St. Kitts, which existed when the Registrar of Lands was appointed back in 2017, is now practically a thing of the past. There are still some outstanding registrations, but these either have legal issues to be solved or resolved, and or are awaiting corrections from attorneys at law. Mr. Speaker, barring any errors or issues with the documents presented for registration, the complete registration process now takes an average of 2 months. Some of this time is, of course, a consequence of the effects of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. But in fact, there are occasions when the process of registration has taken only 2 weeks in St. Kitts, and sometimes as little as 1 day in Nevis. This relatively quick turnaround assisted developments in the economy. For example, we can report such things as Royal Bank of Canada in its commercial endeavors in terms of loans and so forth, TDC in obtaining title to land to allow for the building of a housing development. The appointment of another clerical officer in the registry would have assisted in this faster turnaround. Mr. Speaker, a challenge currently faced by the Land Registry Department is that the post of Assistant Registrar in St. Kitts and Assistant Registrar in Nevis have not yet been filled since the Act was passed in Parliament. This has occurred mainly due to not finding qualified persons in accordance with the legislation to fill these posts, along with financial constraints. This has meant that only the Registrar of Lands has been able to sign documents. She would therefore have to travel to Nevis to attend to the registration of documents there, but however, it is expected that these posts will be filled in the upcoming year. And in any event, Mr. Speaker, I would want to report to this Honourable House that for the period December 2020 to July 2021, over the last 7 months, 2,195 certificates of title and other documents were registered in St. Kitts, bringing a total over the period of the life of the Land Registry Department from January 2018 to July 21 to 9,048 certificates of title and other related documents registered in St. Kitts. In Nevis, during this period, December 2020 to July 2021, approximately 1,621 certificates of title and other documents were registered, bringing a total over the life of the Land Registry Department, namely from January 2018 to July 2021, to approximately 4,800 certificates of titles and other documents registered in Nevis. Mr. Speaker, these statistics do not take into account the continuous work being performed in relation to various applications to the Registrar of Titles, including the applications for first certificates of title, consolidation of titles, and replacement of certificates of titles. A large majority of them are now at the stage of which certificates of titles can be issued. Mr. Speaker, we hope, therefore, that the total physical separation for the Supreme Court has borne fruit over the last couple of years. And we're now at the stage, finally, where we can have the physical separation from the Supreme Court Registry done over the next month. The land registry, the dedicated land registry, we expect to move to the Land Registry Department in St. Kitts to the former CNC building on George Street. It is anticipated that the launch of the search function of the St. Kitts and Nevis Land Administration Information System and the opening of this new registry department in the CNC building on George Street will happen simultaneously, and that is sometime early in September. In Nevis, the staff of the Land Registry Department is still being housed in the Supreme Court building. Space has been identified in the Solomon Arcade to house the Nevis branch of the Land Registry Department, and it is expected that the officers will move into that space around the same time that the officers in St. Kitts move into the CNC building. Mr. Speaker, as has already been mentioned, it is the intention to establish a land adjudication unit under the umbrella of the Land Registry Department. The aim is to have a compilation of a proper cadastral map in St. Kitts and also in Nevis, resulting from adjudication of boundaries. The flyovers by drones in St. Kitts have now been completed, and the aerial imagery is available. There now needs to be, however, verification of the boundaries and the curing of any defects in titles to the land. The details are presently being worked out, but it is envisaged that the country might be divided into districts and perhaps 3 teams, each consisting of a surveyor and an attorney at law, can be designed to a district. Each team would then visit the parcels of land in the district to collect the relevant information from landowners with respect to their titles to the land and the boundaries. Mr. Speaker, it is envisaged that this may take the form of a project, and the aim is to finish the exercise within approximately 2 years. The details are still being worked out. Mr. Speaker, the advantages to the country would be tremendous and would include greater accuracy in the assessment of property values. It would lead to land owned by government would be more easily identifiable. It would lead to the use of a unique numbering system so that everything affecting a parcel of land would be recorded and retrieved efficiently. And Mr. Speaker, I should note it is anticipated that this cadastral map would be expanded into the Land Administration and Information System, from which it will be possible to find out everything about any parcel or areas. Mr. Speaker, I would invite my colleagues to comment on this very important bill that we are speaking about now, because, as I mentioned at the beginning, real property is critical to our economic development. It has the basis of our community, our economy, our society, and this bill advances the way in which we do so in an efficient and an effective manner. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.